So Balsamiq's a templating or a mock-up or wireframing tool. It's pretty simple, which I think that's its benefit, or that's its advantage, is that it's pretty straightforward. So it's a pretty basic program. I'm showing a mock-up for a application that we might do in FileMaker. It doesn't have widgets, doesn't have controls for FileMaker, so you aren't creating a true FileMaker mockup. And one of my observations when it comes to using Balsamiq or tools like it is that FileMaker is pretty easy to do mockups in itself. Why do you necessarily need a mockup tool when you can put user interface widgets on a layout in FileMaker and just mock up your FileMaker database in FileMaker? And I think I still think that's kind of true. Curious of other people's opinions about that. But if we're mocking up something that's not in FileMaker, like a web app, then certainly Balsamiq is an excellent tool, because it has all the controls and widgets you would want for a web app. Also, if we were mocking up an iOS app, if we were doing a FileMaker Go app, it has a whole set of controls for iOS. If we were doing an Android app, same thing, it has a set of controls for Android. I think it's still potentially can be advantageous. It's a little bit quicker to throw stuff around than even FileMaker is for mockup. So I'm going to create a new wireframe and just throw a simple layout together. So I can grab a window, stick it on here. That's probably not a good example because that's a browser window, so I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to find Windows on the or I'm going to find a form on here somewhere. I'll just put a rectangle on here. And I can start throwing text on here. I've got a whole set of data grid tools. And one nice thing about it in comparison to FileMaker or whatever is it's got dummy data right there for you. So if you're trying to make your mockup kind of realistic for the real world, you can easily put data on there. When I double click on the data grid, I've got my column titles in the data grid here, and I've got the dummy data down here. I don't have all of Balsamiq's syntax here memorized, so it's not I can't instinctively just put the checkboxes, radio buttons, and manage column widths the way someone a little more sophisticated person than me with Balsamiq could do. But it's pretty quick and easy to put a portal onto a layout with this on there. You can easily put titles on there. So if this was a customer's layout, I could title it, increase the size of it. And so on. Start putting fields on here. So you can pretty quick and easily mock up a user interface. Unlike in FileMaker, you don't have quite the ability to make the interface, the mock-up interactive. In FileMaker, we could we could throw it into a basic navigational template and give the user some limited ability to flip back and forth between layouts and get a little bit of a feel for the way the application was working. But overall, I think you could still create the mockup quicker in Balsamiq.
It's also nice that it's cartoony looking, so it's implied that this is not stylized. Right. So that, you know, I think when you're in FileMaker, it's easy to get lost in the styling, the style.
Yes.
For trying to do a mock-up, and this sort of just, you know, it basically says that there is, the style hasn't been decided yet. You know, we're writing on a napkin in a very complicated way.
Right. I think that's an important concept. I think it's also, if you're working with a FileMaker customer in particular, it's important to say very, very, very clearly that, and like you said, the fact that this looks like crayon drawing helps with it, but it's still important to tell a client these are not FileMaker controls that we're showing you. So this data grid, it's representing a data grid, not a FileMaker portal. You know, it's not going to look identical to this. I think that's a slight risk with Balsamiq, that it implies, you know, for example, it implies that this data grid implies that I've got sorting portal headers, and FileMaker doesn't do sorting portal headers by default. It would take us a little bit of time to implement that, even using the module we use for sortable portal headers. So we wouldn't want to show that on a mock-up and imply to the client that they're getting that just as a part of the application that we're doing, unless we've specified that that's something we're including. So that's a risk, I think, with Balsamiq. Where I actually think some of the strengths are is after the fact. It's easy to take the mock-up and then use it as more of a living document. So I can click the markup button up here, and if the client says, "Oh no, we don't want a web viewer object there," then I can make it clear that we've agreed that that's not something we're going to put there. If I need to specify some more detail here, I can say. I can easily put markup stuff on here that further defines what we're doing, so that the mockup becomes, you know, the project that I was working on most of this for, this mockup is a large part of the statement of work, where the written statement of work that I put together had a lot less detail than some other statements of work that we've put together, because the mock-up is pretty detailed and eliminated the need for some of that detail. But it's pretty nice being able to have all these little markup tools.
That is awesome. So if so does it have like kind of like similar to a Google Doc, right, where you can click on edit and have, like, if they put notes and stuff on there or reference it, like have, you know, task kind of things? Does it? It
doesn't. I mean, it would be fairly easy to get beyond my limited skill with Balsamiq. I don't think it does that. It's a pretty simple application. You can see from the menu structure up here, there's not a lot of fancy stuff going on.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can do assignments and such like that.
Or track versioning, so that if you were using this as a mock-up and then somebody deleted something on one of the layouts but didn't annotate that they had removed it, kind of a thing. But I like the ability for you being able to scratch stuff out and throw notes on there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And it has it has every control you could imagine. You know, if you're doing, you know, we don't do color pickers very often, but if we've got let's say we stuck a JavaScript color picker in a FileMaker layout, you know, I mean, we've got button bars. So we can really do a pretty rich user interface mockup with this. And it's fast. Now, for the client that I was doing this with, they had Balsamiq also. So it was pretty nice to be able to send the Balsamiq file back and forth to them as I made changes and tried to make the wireframe, the mockup, truly representative of what they were going to see in FileMaker. You know, I did some stuff like change they had some odd UI stuff going on, and I changed them to like this list of files here was an odd text-based thing originally, and I changed it to a more of a data grid portal thing, so it was clear that what we were doing in FileMaker, and being able to send them repeated versions, and then them having me. I could do that as a PDF, obviously, but since they had Balsamiq, it was easy to let them make it the occasional change. And depending on the client, if we were doing this process over a short period of time, Balsamiq has a 30-day trial. So if it was a short enough process, you could even tell them, why don't you download the trial and we'll send you a Balsamiq file, and you can add your comments directly to the file, and you can see how easy the application is. It's all they have to do is click markup and start throwing stuff on here. It's a simple enough application that any moderately technical person, they don't have to be very technical, any moderately computer savvy person could start tweaking the mockup pretty easily, I think. Any questions or comments?
So it's a standalone application for Mac or Windows?
Yes, I'm using it on Mac. I don't know if they have a cloud version.
Or for iPad? Seems like they probably do.
Let's see what their website says. So they have desktop. So they do have Mac. I think it's defaulting to Mac because I'm on a Mac. I don't know. I assume they have a Windows version, but it also looks like they have a cloud version, which could be interesting. That would be something interesting to look into. If they had a cloud version, it would make it a little bit easier to share with the client. Interesting to take a look at.
Yeah, looks like they got Windows, Mac OS 10, Linux.
Some kind of connection to Google Drive. That could be interesting because we've done a little bit of this with Google Docs, not as nearly as sophisticated as Balsamiq, but doing some flow charting and such with Google Docs. If you could just launch a Balsamiq file inside Google Drive directly into a cloud interface, that would be pretty cool.
I don't see an iOS app, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. They said it's in their roadmap, but not right now.
Okay. Well, if the cloud version is good enough, you might be able to use that from an iPad.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know there's a lot of different ones that because a lot of them are sort of SketchUp where you're sketching them with your stylus or your finger, but usually with the stylus, so it's uses smart for different types of mockups that I'd seen, but this was years ago. So you could quickly sketch stuff out from an artistic standpoint versus drag and drop.
Right. Yeah, that'd be interesting to look into.